Casey Mittelstadt is reportedly available via trade. Should the Sharks be interested in the mid-20s center?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making the Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be examining if Casey Mittelstadt from the Colorado Avalanche would make sense to acquire as the Sharks continue their rebuild. We'll look at why Mittelstadt's available, what he would potentially bring to the San Jose Sharks, and if it would make sense, and if maybe betting on the past for Mittelstadt is kind of the way to go. So let's start with why he's potentially available. So the Colorado Avalanche actually acquired him last trade deadline in exchange for Bowen Byram from the Buffalo Sabres. The Avalanche trying to kind of add some more center depth. Of course, they have a bajillion really good defensemen, so they thought Bowen Byram was expendable. Nice one-for-one trade, right? Mittelstadt played pretty well for Colorado last year in the playoffs, and this year just really hasn't kind of earned that same reputation, or hasn't maybe really lived up to expectations, especially after signing a new contract this offseason, 3 years at $5.75 million. For that Avalanche team, who is right now trying to win a Stanley Cup, right? They've been super aggressive this season, trading for Mackenzie Blackwood. Of course, the Rantanen for Nietzsche's trade. This is a team still trying to win a cup despite all the chaos that is kind of going around with the different acquisitions, et cetera, et cetera. Right? You have Nathan McKinnon and you have Cale Makar, 2 of the 10 best. So, I think you could safely put those 2 guys in the top 10 in the NHL of players right now in the NHL. So with those 2 guys, right, you try to do everything you can to try to win yourself a Stanley Cup. And I think for the Avalanche, they feel that they can potentially improve on Mittelstadt and find somebody else. Who that is, I don't know right now. But again, I am not the Colorado Avalanche. There's plenty of potential pieces out there. Who knows what they try to do. But what that does do is it does make Casey Mittelstadt potentially available. Shannon Goldman of The Athletic wrote a piece on Wednesday that had 7 teams that should be interested. The San Jose Sharks weren't one, but I did want to kind of just kick around the idea of if it would make sense. So she does a really good job of kind of, and I don't want to read the entire article, but I do want to kind of pull bits and pieces from it because she does an amazing job of kind of breaking down what went wrong for Mittelstadt, kind of what has, why teams should still be interested. And she does list, like I said, she does list 7 teams. So kind of with Mittelstadt, what went wrong this season is Mittelstadt's very much a passer. He's not a scoring type of player. That is not what he wants to do. He's very much he wants to pass. He wants to generate high danger passes, all that great stuff, right? Which is fine. The Sharks have plenty of those guys. Not enough. Maybe the Sharks don't have enough scoring options, but Mittelstadt is more of a pass first type of guy. You've seen kind of a decrease this year in shots and expected goal creation because of him maybe just straight up, kind of passing on shots. pun intended there. Not really, but anyway. He's also, we'll dig into kind of his stats a little, micro stats a little bit more here. He hasn't been as efficient with zone entries and kind of isn't creating the scoring chances as much. And like, it's just, everything's just kind of down a little bit for Casey Mittelstadt. And one thing to keep in mind, right, is the Avalanche, very much a McKinnon line driven team, right? And you look at some of their big pieces who have not been available. They've been, without, of course, they traded away Rantanen. They have Landeskog, who hasn't played in a couple of years. Nichushkin, who's missed a good chunk of this season as well, is expected to be back here soon. So that could be something to keep in mind for them. But right, they haven't had some of their top players. So it has been very much like we have to rely, like kind of load up and be a one-line team, and maybe not given the best resources around Middlesex, right? The Avalanche are very much a kind of stars and scrubs team, and that's fine. Like you have Nathan McKinnon and you have Cale Makar, like two of the 10 best players in the league. They've been very much like, these guys are going to kind of carry us where we need to go. And we're going to try to kind of patch things up as best we can, especially without two of our other good players in Nichushkin and Landeskog. Landeskog, of course, not expected to really be back. And if Landeskog is back, is Landeskog ever going to be the same guy again? So, right. So Mittelstadt, I think, was maybe kind of miscast in his role with the Avalanche of, we want you to be a two-line center, second-line center. But maybe we just don't have the same support that you could have, because we have to load up the McKinnon line and expect the McKinnon line to. And again, like, it's been working for them. This team is very good. This has been like, this is not a shot at the Avalanche, et cetera, et cetera. Like, this team is very good. I'm just exploring ideas. My hypothesis is my idea of why maybe things just aren't quite working for Casey Mittelstadt. So for the Avalanche, like, I do think for them, this is a very creative team, right? We've seen some of the swings that they, in 10 days, they literally redid their entire goaltending. They traded Rantanen. Like, this team is very much, we're going to swing for the fences. So for them, if they feel like maybe they can trade Mittelstadt in his almost $6 million contract and then turn around and find an upgrade, like, that is kind of, I assume the thinking that they're doing here is, we tried it. It's just not a fit for us and what we want to do, right? The Avalanche are very much a kind of run and gun type of team. Like, they want to get out, they want to push. Mittelstadt, he's a good skater, but again, I don't think maybe that style of play fits into what he's best at. So I kind of think that's what the Avs want to do, right? Is see if we can trade him, either get some sort of assets or get something for him, free up some cap space, and then go do something else to replace him. Because I don't know if it's a like direct 1-for-1, especially with the Sharks, right? The Sharks don't have any forwards on their roster that, one, the Sharks are going to give up, but two, would make sense for Colorado, right? And there's other pieces which we'll get to in the third segment, but I just think for the Avalanche and the Sharks, like, this is not going to, it might be a hockey trade, but this might be kind of one of a like multi-part trade for the Avalanche. So, right, we're going to trade Mittelstadt. We'll get what we can from here, whether it's pieces to go use elsewhere or get a piece and then go use some of the free cap space and the 2 second-round picks we have in this year's draft and the first-round pick we have in next year's draft, and go do something else to try to acquire a center, which we think could be, or another forward that we think could be an upgrade for them. So we're going to get to dig into Mittelstadt here a little bit more. We'll talk about what a potential trade might look like, or at least the frameworks of a trade and why for the Sharks maybe betting on the past and looking at kind of what made Mittelstadt successful. We'll get into all that here in just 1 second. You just realized your business needs to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs. Put your post at the top of the page and help you find the right candidates faster. If you've ever been in a spot where you need to hire like yesterday, the pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly why Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen on seen by the right candidates right now. And now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockdown right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. All right, before we continue with Casey Mittelstadt, we kind of dig into the numbers with him, look at some of his analytics. Do want to, of course, thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, perfect time to subscribe. We're going to continue our draft coverage. We're getting another draft profile lined up. We've also, of course, plenty of stuff for the trade deadline, which is next week. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. All right, Casey Mittelstadt, let's get to know him a little bit more. So former 8th overall pick way back in, it feels, yes, way back in the 2017 draft. 8th overall, picked by the Buffalo Sabres. Mittelstadt came up through the USHL program where he started with the United National Team. Also played for the Green Bay Gamblers. Went to University of Minnesota for a season where he played 34 games, had 11 goals, 19 assists, so 30 points in those 34 games, and then went straight to the NHL after that, where he played with the Sabres up until last season, where he was traded to the Colorado Avalanche. Last year with the Avalanche, in 18 games, he had 4 goals, 6 assists, 10 points. And in the playoffs, he had in 11 games in the playoffs, he had 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points. This season, of course, has been a little bit disappointing compared to that. So let's look. 59 games this year. He has 9 goals, 23 assists, 76 points, playing 17-12 average time on ice, 49.71% Corsi for. So when he is on the ice, the Colorado Avalanche take 49.71% of the shot attempts at 5-on-5, and goals for 43.34%. So when he's on the ice, the Colorado Avalanche score 43.34% of the goals. He's 6'1", 195 pounds, just turned 26 at the beginning of the season. So this is his age 26 season. His contract is this year and 2 more seasons at 5.75. So his contract, when it expires, he will be 28, right? Next year's age 27 season. Year after that, age 28. So at $5.75 million. For a player, again, playing second line center, contract like that, pretty reasonable contract, right? You just kind of look at where centers are going. They get paid more, and you kind of just look at that's one of the kind of the benefits is he is cost controlled for the next 2 seasons, kind of through his prime, right? Of age 26, 27, 28. And when he'll be 29 when he turn ready for a new contract. Right when you again have to pay Michael Celebrini, Will Smith, both those guys are going to be up for new contracts right as this contract expires. So this is a contract that would expire kind of perfect timing for you, and age, then you can kind of make a decision going on to your age, his age 29, 30, like those type. I think this is a contract that really kind of lines up with the Sharks. So, and what they're looking for, and of course, who they're going to have to pay eventually. Looking at his stats, some of his micro stats. So from J Fresh Hockey, 46% WAR this year. You really see it drop off compared to the previous 2 years where he spent most of the time with the Buffalo Sabres. This year, 28%, 6% offense. So his is WAR. It's kind of wins above replacement. That's his style of looking at it. Pretty solid at first line assist. He's played lower competition while getting kind of a little bit better teammates. So maybe the production really doesn't match what you would expect for him in that. Looking at his hockey stat card, his offensive rating is a 0.9, minus 0.9 offensive rating, which is kind of like 50th percentile. Defensive rating is -2. Net rating -3, which is like 25th percentile. So Mittelstadt definitely not having the year I think that he would hope for. And of course, what the Colorado Avalanche are hoping for, because that's why he's potentially available as a trade. Looking at his usage, again, kind of gets a little bit lower quality competition with most of the offensive zone starts, and is kind of categorized as a struggling top 6 two-way forward. His evolving hockey card, again, like a little bit more, his goals above replacement is pretty solid. He plays on the power play, on the first line power play, doesn't play shorthanded, of course, right? His defense is not where you would want to expect it to be. He's 50th percentile compared to in evolving hockey's stats, 60th percentile offensively, 27th percentile defensively for kind of guys who play the kind of first line minutes. So, and then finally looking at his all 3 zones, as we kind of mentioned from Shayna's article from The Athletic, the offense that he's driving just not there this season, right? And the passing really isn't there as well, which is what he's known for. The zone entries, he has struggled, and we'll look at some like previous years here in a minute. He's okay at kind of getting in the defensive zone, at least getting the puck going, which is kind of what you would expect with his the style of player he is. But this is definitely does not feel like a match between the Colorado Avalanche and Casey Mittelstadt. So I get, like, I know people are probably like, well, why would you trade for this bum? Like this guy's not very good. I think I just don't think it's a good match, right? And sometimes it happens, right? Guys just not on the right team, the right system, et cetera, et cetera. I just don't think the Colorado Avalanche and Casey Mittelstadt are a good fit for each other. So does that mean he's a bad player? Maybe, maybe not. I think I'm willing to bet that in the right situation, he can still be a productive player. Maybe not the guy you're expecting to get 8th overall. And he's had good seasons, right? Looking at the last couple seasons, so his 22-23 season with the Buffalo Sabres, played all 82 games, 15 goals, 44 assists, 59 points in 82 games. And that was his age 23 season. Okay. Or age 24. Last season, age 25 season. Played 62 games with the Sabres, 14 goals, 33 assists, 47 points. And like I said, got traded to the Avalanche, where he played mostly with Nichushkin, quality scorer. And you saw more production there. So I think it might be one of those things where he maybe just doesn't have a running mate, right? And maybe the Avalanche, maybe they're patient. They wait for Nichushkin, see how far this goes in the playoffs. And then if things fall apart, maybe it becomes an offseason move. But I think there's something here that's worthy of investigating. So we're going to look at what a potential trade, at least my idea for a trade. And then we will look at kind of why I think betting on the pass for him might be worth it, and if it would make sense for the Sharks to acquire Mittelstadt. So let's get to that here in just 1 second. And of course, I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. When you're done with this episode, go check out one of the other great shows here at the Locked On Network. Of course, you have Locked On Fantasy Hockey. You have Locked On NHL Hockey. You've got plenty of stuff in the Bay Area, right? Locked On Warriors, Locked On A's. Spring training is getting going. Also, why can't you watch like every game on spring training? What are we doing? Same thing with hockey preseason. What are we doing here? You have Locked On Warriors as Jimmy Butler has resurrected the Warriors. Locked On Niners as they get ready for free agency and the draft. So plenty of great stuff here at the Locked On Network where we cover your team every day. Okay. So Casey Mittelstadt, right? Let's start with why I think it's worth betting on the pass, because he was a good and productive player, right? We just outlined, like, those are quality seasons for Casey Mittelstadt. Being a 40 to 50 point player, those are quality seasons for him. Right, 59 points in 82 games, 57 points. So it was, age 25 season, 57 points in 80 games. And then last year, 57 points in 82, like 80. Those are good seasons. Mid-50s, that's a good season. Like, that is a good season for a player. Looking back, right? So Evolving Hockey, that 23-24 season when he got traded. Playing first-line minutes, 82nd percentile player, 83rd offense, 80th defense. And again, like, he's not a shutdown defense. His defense is the defense is for nerds, go score a bunch of points style. Like, he's not going to be a shutdown defenseman, which is fine. But if you can control the puck and play offense, you don't have to play defense. And even looking at his all three stats, like, zone entries, he was much better. His passing was much better that season. The defensive zone, like, he's not a big forechecking type of guy, which is fine. That's a big thing you're going to have to go find, is make sure he has the right line mates. Not his kind of style of play is going to be a forechecking, but he's a puck moving, passing forward who can help drive offense. So for the Sharks, if you were to do this, the reason why you would do this is, one, you need some more help down in especially your middle six, right? We know the third line. We've talked about it, especially right now. The third line is a bit of a mess. The fourth line is even worse. But getting a guy like Mittelstadt, who is cost controlled for the next couple seasons, still kind of in his prime right now, with potentially, meat on the bone, I think this is worth a gamble as you wait for your young prospects to kind of mature into their role, right? Mittelstadt, a guy who can play wing or center. So if you want him to start at center, and then as maybe Will Smith gets comfortable in the wing, gets more comfortable and becomes a center, or what, like, he gives you some flexibility, especially in your middle six. You will need to find players who are good forecheckers to play with him, i.e. like a guy like Zetterlund, right? Zetterlund, go get puck. And guys who can shoot, a guy like Fabian Zetterlund, and a guy like Will Smith, who I know not like his shot is not kind of refined right now, but Will Smith has the capabilities and I think is going to be a really good scorer in the NHL. So if you wanted to have Casey Mittelstadt play your second line center on a team that has a lot less expectations and isn't as run and gun as the Avalanche, right? The Sharks they do get out on the rush occasionally, and they will, but they're more of a cycle team, right? You look at the way Smith and Eklund and Toffoli work, and like the Sharks are a little bit just more of a kind of a cycle team, and we just don't have the horses to go out and try to kind of run and gun with teams, right? They're a little bit more methodical. So getting a guy like Mittelstadt, putting him with, players, I think that maybe complement his skill set a little bit more. That Zetterlund, Smith, Mittelstadt line would potentially be very disastrous when it comes to defensive issue, like breakdowns and stuff. But I think for the Sharks, like, this is something that you should really look into doing, because you're going to have to upgrade getting better middle six players is going to have to be on the Sharks to-do list this offseason, right? As excited as we are for Musty and Igor Chernyshov and Kasper Holton and some of these other prospects who are going to start to kind of graduate and into become professional. Like, none of these guys are playing in the NHL next year. And if they are, you're not expecting them to be big-time contributors, right? This isn't even, even Will Smith, right? It took him half a season before you felt like he was contributing more often. And the Sharks prospects, right? Even looking at maybe Bordelot's here, maybe Gushin's here, the Sharks need just NHL bodies in the middle six, right? Because we can't continue to roll out Luke Cunnin and Barclay Goodrow and like some of these other guys. Like, you need to have legitimate middle six guys. And I believe Mittelstadt is a legitimate middle six guy who's just not in the right situation right now. So what does a trade look like? And that's the hard part, right? Because for Mittelstadt, former 8th overall pick, right? You swapped him for a former 4th overall pick last season. His value's kind of at a low right now, especially with this contract. The one I came up with, right? One that the Avalanche have been kind of tied to is Mario Ferraro. Is it Ferraro for Mittelstadt? 1-for-1? And maybe yes, I think maybe Mittelstadt's the better player, but Ferraro has been linked to the Avs. They do want to add some upgrade there. It also does give them like $1 million. So Ferraro at $3.25 million. Mittelstadt at $2.75 million. Not a big math guy, but I have to break out the calculator for this one. That is a savings of $2.5 million in cap space. Can the Avalanche use that $2.5 million in cap space to put it elsewhere to go do something else? I think they can, right? And they still have 2 second-round picks this year. They have a first-round pick in next year's draft, which is a much better draft, of course. But it's going to be a late first-round pick, most likely, unless it's a hard world for me to envision the Avalanche not being a good team again next season. So they have resources that they want to go be aggressive elsewhere. I think for them, adding a solid, 4th, 5th defenseman on their for like what they're doing, and a guy like Mario Ferraro in that $2.5 million cap space, that's probably worth it for them, especially again, as I think this would be a multi-level, kind of a multi-trade for them as they try to figure out how to upgrade Mittelstadt. So maybe the Sharks have to throw in a pick here or something like that. Okay. I don't think if it's like a 4th round pick or something like that, that's fine. Like, who cares? I don't think it would be a costly pick for the Sharks. So, and for the San Jose, right, you get another legitimate middle six player, guys cost controlled for the next couple seasons. And if after a season, if he plays well, maybe you flip him for something else. If he doesn't, he's got 2 years left on his deal, you can kind of survive that. And especially a team that is still trying to figure it out, and they just need more NHL bodies. So I would be, if the cost is right, I would be very interested in adding guy like Mittelstadt, because again, I think what you're going to have to pay for older players in free agency for probably longer term deals, I would rather get a guy like Mittelstadt who you have 2 years to kind of figure it out with him. And worst case again is he's holding down the fort. He's for your younger guys. He's not going to be a progress stopper for your younger guys as they start to enter the league. And it just gives you more options and flexibilities. That way you have, you'd have celebrating Mittelstadt, Wenberg, 3 guys who can all legitimately be centers. You have Will Smith, who's on his way to hopefully being a center. And then you can start to, Musties and Bordelots, whomever else into the fray here, and just give them, even a guy like Musty with Mittelstadt. A guy who likes to pass to a guy who likes to shoot like Quentin Musty. Like, okay, you can talk me into that for a little bit. So, yeah, I think for the Sharks again, you're gonna have they're going to have to go out and acquire middle six, like just good NHL players, middle six NHL players this offseason. Why not get a guy who I think can at least maybe fits the timeline a little bit better, isn't as old, and it's probably going to be cheaper, at least money wise. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back tomorrow. So make sure you follow along wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Till tomorrow. Bye, friends.